Hi everyone, in today's video I wanted to talk through the most influential books that I've ever read. I've chosen a list of 10 books that when I read them they changed my life forever. So there's no particular order to these books, there's no rankings. The main premise, as I've said, is these books have just fully changed my life. These aren't necessarily going to be the best books I've ever read, but they're the books that have been the most influential in my life and have made me the reader I am today. So the first book I want to talk about is Touch of Power by Marie V. Schneider. This might be the book that I read the earliest in my reading journey. I think I read this book before any of the other ones. I'm not really 100% sure, but this book was published, I think, in 2012. So it's a very old book. It was written over a decade ago, and I read this book over a decade ago, and I still think about it to this day. This book made me so obsessed with this series when I was a child, and there is lots of faults with it. I can recognize that. It's a very repetitive series. Marie V. Schneider reused plot points at certain points, just in different ways. So it is very repetitive, but I loved this first book to no end. This book was incredible to me when I was a child. I loved it so much. And the reason I love this book so much is because we were dealing with a healer, and I just loved the way she interacted with all of the characters, and especially her love interest. The love interest was so horrible at the beginning of this book. Really had problems he needed to work through. He was just the worst. But the side characters to her were so nice. I loved the way she really put him in his place from what I remember, because we are talking about a book I read years ago. But I just loved this book, and I honestly think that this is the book that made me fall in love with healers for characters. Anytime there's a healer in a book, I'm instantly drawn to it, and for the life of me, I cannot remember what that word is when you see it in a synopsis and you just want to read the book instantly. For me, I think this is the book that made me fall in love with healers for main characters. There's just something about that character type that I love so much. I think it's just because healers tend to normally just want the best for everyone, and they try so hard. And as I said, I love this book so much. It was so much fun. Just everything about this I'm obsessed with. I still love this book. I still think about it to this day. There is nothing anyone could say about this book that would make me hate it. It's just got such a special place in my heart. And I don't necessarily think everyone should read it. I just think I really read this book at the right time in my life. I've reread it 3 times, which is a lot for me. I normally don't reread. So I just really adored this book. So this is the first one. Then second, we're going to go into City of Bones by Cassandra Clare. So this is a very popular series in general, but it's not fantastic. There's lots of problems with it, but I adore it. I read it when I was a teenager, and this cast of characters, similar to A Touch of Power, just have such a special place in my heart. Clary, Jace, Simon, Isabel, Alec, and Magnus. I just love them so much. I think they are such a good found family dynamic. I just love them so much. And I remember, I think when I saw this book, I really don't know why I even picked it up, because when you look at this cover, it is hideous, but I think I just remember seeing lots of good reviews on it. But I just was obsessed with this series. It's not my favorite book in the series in any regards, but this is the book series that is so nostalgic for me, where I'll read any book in this world. And lots of people moan about Cassandra Clare and how she's writing so many books in this universe. And for me, I love it so much because I just love the Shadowhunter world. And I feel like if I read this book series now, it probably wouldn't be a favourite. It probably wouldn't have impacted me the way it did. But I think because I was so early on in my reading journey, that lots of books just really were amazing. And this is one book from my childhood that stands out. There's very few books that I read when I was a teenager that I can really say, yes, I loved. And I can name there's only 5 that I consistently think about, which includes Divergent, The Hunger Games, City of Bones, one of the books I'll be talking about next, Touch of Power, Percy Jackson. So there's a very small handful of books that I read 10 years ago I still think about, and this is one of them. I think I read this around 2013. I don't know when I read this series, but it just really made me fall in love with YA fantasy. It was such a pivotal story in my life that has really sparked my love of reading. And it's books like this that, even though they're not great, but the way they impacted me makes me love them. And for books to even be considered to be spoken about in this video, they need to be ones that I've thought about and have actually really changed my life. And this is a book that has completely impacted me as a reader. And as I said, it's not good. Some of the story elements that play a hand later on in the series are ridiculous, and it's like, why would you even think about doing it? And as I said, if I hadn't have read this book when I was younger, I wouldn't love it now. Like, I don't think so. But because these characters just mean so much to me, this series just means the world. Like, when I think about characters I love this cast of characters. They're annoying, they're flawed, but I just adore them. So I love City of Bones and the rest of the Shadowhunter world so much. And yeah, I love this series in particular. Even more so than the Infernal Devices, because the love triangle in the Infernal Devices, even though it was done good, I remember when I was a kid, I was so angry at the end of the second book. This is the only time I've ever got the book and I threw it across the room. I was so mad about the direction it took. And it kind of still hurts me to this day what happens, but I've gotten over it to worlds better than I did. But I was at one point, I was like, I refuse to continue on with that series, which is ridiculous. But Cassandra Clare just has this way of really impacting me when it comes to her characters. So this is the second book, and I feel like this video might actually take me a really long time to film. So the next book is actually a third book in the series, but when I think about this series, this is the book I think about, and that is Crez by Marissa Meyer. This is one of the first books I ever remember reading because of BookTube. I'm going to say this about every book in this video. I love it so much. This might be one of my favourite books of all time. Like, other books I'll be talking about and have spoken about aren't necessarily my favourite books. Like, City of Bones is not a perfect book. It's a good book. I love it. But Crez, oh my gosh, this book completely blew my expectations out of the water, made me obsessed with this world, made me obsessed with the series. I just loved Crez so much as a character. I love seeing her with, oh, what's his name again? Fawn? Is it Fawn? Let me have a look. Oh yeah, it is Fawn. So as I was saying, I love Crez and Fawn so much, but in particular Crez. Everything that happened in this book, from their first interaction, they are one of the best couples I've ever met. There was chemistry from the beginning, from page one. I love how Crez had such a crush on Fawn, and it was just brilliantly done, because normally I don't love books with insta-love, but for some reason, this book didn't have insta-love, but Crez was obsessed with Fawn, and then seeing her, like, realize who he is as a person as the story goes on and fall in love with him is just so well done. And I loved the way that as these two characters got to know each other, they were so there for each other, and they just supported each other so much through this book. Even though Fawn could be absolutely an idiot, make so many mistakes, I just love him. I love this story. This is one of the only few sci-fi books that I really still think about, because I don't really read sci-fi, but this one in particular I love so much. It's one series that I definitely want to reread in the future. I don't know when I'll get to it, but I am hoping I'll be able to read it by the end of the year, because I just loved this book. And I remember having to wait for the fourth book, and I was so sad I had to wait so long. But this one, I love it. I'm so glad I've got my hands on this edition, because this is just my childhood. Like, I'm so glad I found BookTube, which made me find this book, because without BookTube, I would have never seen this series. So it's just one of my favourite series of all time. I've read over 1,000 books, and this one is one of the top 10, like, without doubt. Like, if you ask me what is my favourite book, this would definitely be one of them. There's no question. There's no book that would be able to sway whether or not this would be on the list. It's like, this is a top 10 read of mine. Nothing will ever change that, I don't think. Like, there's no story that is got, well, there will be stories that I love, but I don't think there will be 10 other books which will be as good as Crez for me, because I just I've loved it for over 10 years now. So it's pretty solidified as a favourite book and one of the most influential books I've ever read. So yeah, I'm now going to move on to the fourth book of this video, and that book is The Queen's Resistance by Rebecca Ross. So going on with books that I read when I was younger, this is a book that really impacted me as a teenager. And when people think about Rebecca Ross, they normally think of Divine Rivals. That's, I would say, her most popular work. But for me, when I think of Rebecca Ross, I think of The Queen's Resistance duology, and the first one is The Queen's Rising. This book, as I said, is my favourite because everything I want in a story was in this book. There was nothing I disliked. It was just a perfect book in my opinion. I don't know if I would feel the same now because I've read it so long ago, but I just adore this book and I love it. I'm staring at it. Well, it's so good. And the reason why it's influenced me so much is because this really made me fall in love with YA fantasies. There's a couple books that made me fall in YA fantasies, but this in particular made me fall in love with some of the tropes that were present in this story. And I don't want to tell you what they are because some of them would be spoilers, and I really am cautious of not spoiling anything, but just know this is another one of the influential books that I've read. Which one do I want? Oh, we'll talk about this book next. Wait, do we want to? Yeah. So the next book I've got to talk about is, rather than being a book, it's more an author, but I'm going to hold up this book. So the book is The Best Thing by Marina Zapata. So I've read all of her books during COVID, basically. I binge read them within a month or two. So they've kind of all blurred into one. So I can't really give synopsises of any of her books because, as I said, I read them all within a month and it was 5 years ago. So they're all kind of just one mess of a story. But this book I rated 5 stars. I think there was a single parent trope in here, which I've always enjoyed. I don't honestly remember why this book in particular was my favourite by her, but Marina Zapata is one of my favourite romance writers of all time. She is really the one who made me fall in love with slow burn romances, and I will always call her the queen of slow burn romances. Even though her later releases have kind of really disappointed me, her earlier works, there's no faults to some of them. Some of them there's problems with, but because of my experience reading these books, they changed my life. Because if I hadn't have read them when I did, which is kind of the theme of this whole video, I would probably still love them. But it was just the whole experience around reading these books which I adored. And I'm kind of really annoyed at the fact that when I read them, I didn't realise they were interconnected in certain elements. So I wish when I started this series, I had have known that you should kind of read certain ones in orders because you get to see little cameos from characters in previous books, which I absolutely adore. So I wish I just got to see more of the characters in the order I was meant to read the books. But overall, as Marina Zapata is the slow burn romance queen, I don't think there's much more I can say about it other than if you want a slow burn romance book, definitely pick up some of her books. Even if one of them's not to your liking, there's probably going to be one book that you will enjoy because she's just written so many books, and I still can't believe just how quickly I annihilated reading these books. I read them so quick, like a month to read basically. How many books? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. There's probably like over 10 books of hers that I read in 1 month, which is unheard of for an author. Like, I don't think I've done that for another author other than Marina Zapata. So because of that, I just continue to think about her books. I think about them probably once a week, at least. They've really impacted what I look for in a book because I love a slow burn romance. So when I think about slow burn romances and romances in general, for it to be a really epic love story for me, a slow burn one is one I need. And I've never read an author who writes such a slow burn the way she does, because it's literally with some of the books you get to the last few chapters and that's when the characters get together. And the build-up before the characters get into a relationship is always my favourite part of romances. So I just adore all of her works. We are now halfway. I'm so happy. I don't know which one. Maybe we'll talk about a fantasy book next. Oh, I don't know which one I want to talk about first. You know what? We're going to talk about this book. The next book is Elantris by Brandon Sanderson. I love this book so much that I literally got the leather-bound version of it. It costed a fortune to ship it to Australia, but I love it so much. This is my favourite book that Brandon Sanderson has ever released. This is one of the 2 books on this list that really made me get into the adult fantasy genre. There is literally nothing wrong with this book in my opinion. Nothing I could improve on. I love the characters, but my favourite element of this story was the world. The politics of what was going on in here and the discussions surrounding religion, I really thought were well done. But that's just my opinion. I could be wrong. Other people will probably might have different opinions to me. But for me, I just really like the discussions that were had in this book. And normally I'm not a reader who's like, yes, the discussions of themes and that. I don't really care. I'm just reading for enjoyment. When I think about what this story was trying to accomplish, I just really enjoyed what it did. And as I said, I know lots of people don't really love Elantris, but for me, it is the best book he's ever published that I've read so far. I haven't read The Way of Kings, so that could easily take this spot, potentially. But because I've loved Elantris for so long, it's even taken over Mistborn. Like, the second book in the Mistborn series is one of my favourite sequels ever, but Elantris, like, nothing can top it from him so far. It's just incredible. And because I'm such a romance heavy reader, I really also like when there's a romance. So I'm so happy that the romance in here was really well done, because it was just the slow paced nature of it was beautiful. I love getting to see these characters get to know one another, and honestly holding this book up is a workout. I love all the like character artwork that we get. It's just such a stunning edition. I'm just going to show you one more because I actually haven't read this edition just because I don't want it to get damaged whatsoever, but I love it. I love Elantris, definitely a top tier fantasy, and yeah, the discussions were some of the best I've ever read. And then the next epic fantasy I've got to talk about is Assassin's Quest by Robin Hobb. There is no chance that I would have done this video and not mentioned Assassin's Quest, because this is one of the books that has made me love epic adult fantasies like so much. But I had quite a reading journey with this series because I read Assassin's Apprentice twice. The first time I hated it. I was so bored. I was like, I'm never going to continue on. But I just kept hearing so many good things about the Realm of the Elderlings, and I'm like, what am I missing with that first book? I struggled so much. So then I reread it, and the second time round, I still was so bored. I thought, this is crap still. I still don't like the first book. Like, even till this day, I'm like, I don't like it. And I think the reason for that is because we're following a child. I don't tend to love stories told by children. And Fitz in the first book, he was cute. I liked him. He's such a depressed boy in all of the books. But it was just, I wasn't drawn to that story. And then I read the second book, really enjoyed it. But then I read Assassin's Quest. This book, fantastic. God tier book, 6-star read, nothing. This is one of my favourite fantasies of all time. And I think the reason I love this book so much is because we really get to know the characters more. And especially the interactions between Fool and the Fitz were so cute. Their friendship and the way they are there for one another. I love the support they have, but I especially love the Fool as a character. And then we don't get to see a lot of particular character in this book, which I loved because I hate this character so much. I find them to be so infuriating. I want to get this book and just get rid of every single scene with them. I really hate them. I felt so sorry for Fitz at the end of this book and what happened. It was heartbreaking. And honestly, nothing happened in this book. It is a 800-page book, and it was literally just them traveling and going through a forest. Normally, that wouldn't work for me. Normally, I would be bored out of my mind. I'd be like, when is this book going to end? But because I love Fitz and I love the Fool so much, it was just their interactions really made this book for me. And I also really enjoyed how we got to see how the story is progressing. And I'm so glad I actually gave The Realm of the Elderlings a shot and continued on, even though I didn't like Assassin's Apprentice, because it's really become one of my favourite series of all time. I'm so glad I've got the opportunity to read these books, because I just think Robin Hobb is one of the best writers out there. I think it is very hard to beat just how good Robin Hobb is as a writer. She is such a good storyteller because even though her stories are slow paced, she's just got such a way with words where you become so invested in these characters' stories. You care about them so deeply. Well, I do. I'm talking about my experience, obviously. I love them to bits. But Fitz is just someone who is ingrained in my heart of a character I adore. I will forever love Fitz. He can honestly do no wrong, but obviously he can. He is so oblivious to some things, but I just love him and I root for him. And his relationship with the Fool is one of my favourites. So yeah, Robin Hobb's writing and storytelling is just so good because she makes me hate characters and then I'm like, how am I ever going to like them? And then by the end of the book, I do. And it's just insane. I don't think I'm ever going to like the character I was speaking about earlier, though. Like, I really will forever hate them. But for every other one, I've either loved them at the beginning and then I can hate them by then. But she's just, I don't know how she does it. I don't know how she makes me care so much about her characters, but she just does. And I love Assassin's Quest. So this is the next book. So 3 left. So the next one I wanted to talk about was Den of Wolves by Juliet Marilla. This is the 3rd book in the series and it's the Blackthorn and Grimm series. Let me make sure. Yeah. And this is similar to Assassin's Quest, a very slow-paced novel. I said it's very hard for authors to beat Robin Hobb's writing. Juliet Marilla is the author who's got the closest to Robin Hobb's way of storytelling. I would honestly put them on like equal footing, but they tell very different stories. But this one in particular is such a whimsical fairy tale-like story. And Juliet Marilla is just able to create one of the best atmospheres I've ever read. This is another slow burn romance and it is a book that has just made me fall in love with the slower paced kind of storytellings because I'm such a character driven reader. So even when not a lot happens, if there's a good cast of characters and I'm obsessed with them, I will enjoy the story. But for this one in particular, it is the romance that when I think about it, that's what I think about. Because there is such a strong foundational friendship that begins in the first 2 books because these 2 characters get to know one another as the series progresses until the end where they end up being a couple. And like the whole time you're like just on the edge of your seat being like, when is it going to happen? When are they going to get together? And I loved the way that the main character let the male lead into her life and into her world because she was very standoffish, and the way they ended up learning to trust each other as the series progressed and really work with one another was so beautiful. They care so deeply about one another that when I think about one of the best couples I've ever read about, I don't know if a couple beats them just because of how much they love each other and they're just actually such good friends. So I just adore them. I love this story. I definitely need to read more by Juliet Marilla because I just in a recent reading vlog read Daughter of the Forest and that book kind of let me down. Like, it was good, but I didn't love it. Whereas this book I love. So I might give another one of her series a chance to see if Juliet Marilla could become an author by author for me. Or this is just one of them cases where I love one series by her, but the rest don't live up to that. And I think that could be because I'm going into her other books with such high expectations, which is just really, really hard to live up to because of how deeply I just love this book. So we've got 2 more. We're now going to talk about, I don't know because they're both romances now, but we're going to talk about the first romance I read out of the 2, and that is A Kingdom of Flesh and Fire by Jennifer L. Armentrout. So I read From Blood and Ash years ago, because when I first started BookTube, I met these 3 or 4 girls and we made like a book club and we read From Blood and Ash. I don't really talk to them much anymore. No, I don't talk to them at all anymore. But I remember reading From Blood and Ash with them and it was a good book and I had a good time. But it was really the book that got me into romances, and it's not From Blood and Ash that did that. It is A Kingdom of Flesh and Fire. Like, this is the first romantasy that I really remember reading. I'd read, like, YA fantasies before, and I've probably read romantasies earlier, but this is definitely the book that sticks out to me as the first romantasy I ever read. And I know people don't really like the series as it goes on, but because I love the three main characters so much, it doesn't bother me what happened in the fourth book. I didn't mind it. It's not necessarily my favourite scene, but it didn't bother me. And I was like, okay, kind of makes sense. But I just adore these characters, and because I adore them so much, I'm just so thankful I picked up this book, because it really opened up a whole new genre to me, because I've always been such a romance heavy reader, so I love seeing the merge between fantasy and romance and what we're getting and all the different type of stories we now have the option to read. I just adore it. But yeah, this was just influential because it is the first romantasy I ever read. The final book that has changed my life is Throne of the Fallen by Kerri Maniscalco. So I have read Kingdom of the Wicked, that trilogy, thought it was okay. So I went into this book not expecting much whatsoever, but when I read it, I wouldn't say I was necessarily in a reading slump, but I kind of was. I felt like I was just picking up books and nothing was gelling with me. Like, don't get me wrong, I was still reading lots of books, but this one, it made me remember why I loved reading, because I feel like for a couple months to a year, I was really struggling, being like, why do I even read? Like, I was really in not a great place with my reading, because it was just feeling like every book was kind of the same. I wasn't getting that high that I really search for when I read books. And then I picked up Throne of the Fallen. This book, so good. Just so good. And Kerri Maniscalco also wrote Stalking Jack the Ripper, which is another series I love. But this is definitely my favourite work of hers, because I just loved the main characters so much. I loved the world. Just everything about this story was a hit for me. But I just think I read it at the perfect time in my life, because I needed to remember why I loved reading. And this book did that for me. So it's just got such a special place in my heart. Like the rest of the books on this list do. I love it. I don't have one bad thing to say about this book. It's just all good to me. So this was the final book. So I'm going to now grab up the 10 books. Let me grab them all for you. Oh, we've got that one. Okay, this is going to be a struggle. So, oh my god. And you can tell how loved these books are, because look how yellow that book is. And the two at the front. They're the oldest, so you can really see which ones are the oldest. Oh, I might hit myself in the face. So these are my top 10 most influential books I've ever read. I'm so thankful I've got these books. I'm so thankful I've read them, because they really have shaped me as a reader. I'm being so careful. And if it wasn't for some of these books, I don't think I would be the reader I am today. Like, I just love them. And they're all just sitting down here. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video, because I had a good time filming it for you all. And just really taking a moment to appreciate books that I've read when I was younger, and books that have really shaped me, because I don't feel like I think about them enough. Like, don't get me wrong, I think about them a lot, but they really do mean a lot to me. I'm never going to get rid of them, because they're just books that I want to keep in my collection forever. So yeah, I'm now at the end of this video, and I hope you enjoyed it, and I just wanted to say I hope to see you next time, and bye.